Today, we're talking about PartnerStack. Picture four founders crammed into a small house in Toronto's Koreatown. It's 2014. They can't afford transit passes to get to their own investor meetings. The product they're building is failing. It's a workplace messaging app called Pod, and the kindest way to describe it is a weaker version of Slack. There are no customers, no funding, no obvious path forward, and yet, within a decade, this same team would build a company valued as one of the largest B2B partner networks on Earth, one that claims to have driven more than $3 billion in revenue for its customers through a network of over 138,000 partners. The strange part is, the thing that saved them wasn't a better version of their product. It was something they built almost by accident, just to survive. This is the story of how a failing app became PartnerStack. Let's go back to that house in Toronto. The founders needed cash, fast. So they did something practical, almost desperate. They set up a partner program paying outside agencies in Toronto and London a commission to sell Pod on their behalf. Here's the twist. The software itself kept stalling. It wasn't working. But the referral channel was working. Within months, it was bringing in tens of thousands of dollars a month. And then something even stranger happened. Larger companies started reaching out, not to buy Pod. They didn't care about the messaging app at all. They wanted to know how the team had built its partner engine. That's the moment everything changed. The founders realized the product they'd spent months laboring over wasn't the real asset. The real asset was the distribution channel they'd built almost as an afterthought. This is a pattern worth sitting with, because it shows up again and again in business history. Sometimes the thing you're building isn't the thing the market actually wants from you. Sometimes your side project, your workaround, your emergency measure turns out to be the main event. So the founders pivoted. First to a company called Grossumo, later to PartnerStack. But let's be honest about how this pivot was received, because it wasn't smooth. When they pitched the concept to venture capitalists in 2015, the reception was cold. One investor reportedly called it the dumbest idea he'd ever heard. His argument was straightforward, and it reflected the conventional wisdom of the era. SaaS companies should pour every dollar into direct sales. Partnerships were seen as a distraction, at best a consumer affiliate tactic, definitely not a serious enterprise growth channel. At the time, partner marketing in B2B software was genuinely unglamorous. It was fragmented spreadsheets, manual payouts, disconnected portals. Nobody was building serious infrastructure around it, but the founders saw something the skeptics didn't. Most of global trade, across nearly every industry, moves through indirect channels. Dealers, resellers, agencies, affiliates. Software had been an exception, obsessed with direct, predictable acquisition. The founders' bet was that this obsession would eventually run into a wall. As markets saturated and channels like search and social advertising grew more expensive, the companies that won wouldn't be the ones with the biggest ad budgets. They'd be the ones with the strongest ecosystems of trusted third-party voices. It's a classic contrarian growth bet. You're not fighting today's market. You're positioning for the market that's coming. Now, here's where the story gets interesting from a marketing standpoint, because before the founders built the real product, they sold something that didn't exist yet. They put up a landing page under the name Grossumo, chosen mostly because the domain was cheap. It presented the company as a working channel marketing platform. It wasn't. But the pitch was compelling enough that when the team cold called dozens of B2B SaaS companies, about 20 signed up within 2 weeks. On a promise, not a product. That demand signal got them into Y Combinator's 2015 batch. But acceptance into Y Combinator introduced a new problem, one that a lot of high-growth companies eventually run into. The accelerator pushed them to show week-over-week growth ahead of demo day. So the team chased top-of-funnel acquisition. They launched on Product Hunt. It got an enthusiastic reception. And it was, in hindsight, a costly distraction. They had successfully marketed a product that wasn't ready for the complexity of real B2B SaaS economics. This is worth pausing on because it's a trap many startups fall into. Marketing can outrun the product. You can get very good at generating attention before you've earned the right to keep it, and the bill for that gap always comes due eventually. For PartnerStack, the bill arrived in the form of Base CRM. Base CRM, later acquired by Zendesk, became a marquee customer. And crucially, their team handed PartnerStack something incredibly valuable, a roadmap. They spelled out exactly what infrastructure they needed to scale their channel program, a program that reportedly drove more than half of their revenue. This was, in other words, a gift, a blueprint from a sophisticated customer showing PartnerStack exactly how to become indispensable. And PartnerStack didn't take it. Focused on protecting its growth metrics, the company set those requirements aside in favor of chasing a broader, less qualified user base. Months later, frustrated by a platform that couldn't meet its needs, base CRM churned. Think about what was lost there. Not just a customer, but the clearest possible signal about what the ideal customer actually required. PartnerStack had walked away from depth in favor of the appearance of breadth. This is the pivot point of the entire story. The founders concluded that prioritizing acquisition before genuine product-market fit is fatal in enterprise software. Vanity growth, the kind that looks good on a slide, isn't the same as durable growth. So they made a hard choice. They pulled back from top-line growth entirely and spent roughly a year on unglamorous heads-down engineering. One of the founders, Jones, later called it going to the dentist. Not fun. Necessary. They built tools for prorated subscription commissions, multi-tier reseller tracking, automated tax handling across markets. And most consequentially, they replaced unreliable browser pixel tracking, the kind that breaks under ad blockers with server-to-server tracking, so partners got properly credited even for complex multi-touch deals. What they were really doing underneath all that technical language was engineering trust directly into the product. In a partner ecosystem, trust isn't a soft value, it's the entire mechanism. If partners don't believe they'll get paid accurately for the deals they influence, the whole model collapses. Once that foundation was solid, the company's strategy shifted in a way that made it genuinely distinctive. It stopped thinking of itself as just a tool for managing partners a company already had. Instead, it built a two-sided marketplace, connecting B2B SaaS companies to a pre-vetted network of affiliates, agencies, and resellers. That's a subtle but massive shift in value proposition. PartnerStack wasn't software anymore. It was a distribution engine. A startup could plug in and immediately reach a global, performance-based sales force, one that only got paid when it actually closed deals. And here's the elegant part. By solving its customers' distribution problem, PartnerStack solved its own marketing problem at the same time. A genuine network effect kicked in. Every new brand on the platform brought its own partners. Every new partner attracted more brands. The system compounded on itself. You can actually see this dynamic in how understated the company's own rebrand was. When Grossumo became PartnerStack, there was no big launch campaign, no elaborate unveiling. The team simply pushed updated branding out to its partners, and those partners refreshed their own content across the web. The ecosystem did the marketing. The product had become self-propagating, but building a great marketplace wasn't enough on its own. There was still a stubborn obstacle standing between PartnerStack and enterprise adoption. Internal politics. At many companies, partner marketing was treated as a silo, disconnected from core revenue targets, something the marketing team did on the side, not something the executive team took seriously. PartnerStack's response was to change the entire conversation. Selling executives on the word partnerships was a losing pitch because the C-suite doesn't care about portal logins or ecosystem goodwill. They care about pipeline, conversion, capital efficiency. So the company trained its customers and its own sales team to drop the partnership jargon entirely and speak the language of the chief revenue officer. Partner-led growth was repositioned as the most capital-efficient route to market in SaaS, a direct antidote to the rising cost of paid acquisition and direct sales. That reframing moved the conversation out of the marketing department and into the boardroom, which is exactly where durable budget commitments get made. Now fast forward to 2025 and 2026, and the buyer's journey is fragmenting all over again. Buyers are increasingly bypassing traditional search and sales calls altogether. Instead, they're turning to large language models, tools like ChatGPT and Gemini, to inform their software decisions. PartnerStack's argument here is sharp. These AI systems lean heavily on third-party user-generated content, which means a company relying only on its own website and its own marketing copy risks becoming essentially invisible to AI-driven discovery. Jones has put it bluntly, arguing that the large majority of AI search results are shaped by third-party partner content, not brand-owned content. To show up in this new layer of discovery, what marketers now call answer engine optimization, brands need independent affiliates, consultants, and reviewers actively discussing their products across the web. PartnerStack positioned its marketplace as exactly the vehicle for that, mobilizing content creators and B2B influencers to generate authentic third-party validation at scale. And it began layering an AI of its own, using agents to automate partner recruitment and match vendors with the niche partners best suited to extend their reach. In effect, shifting the platform from a system of record into a system of action. So what does this story actually teach us? First, build for the customers who bring real value. The base CRM episode is a hard reminder that deep product market fit with a few demanding, high-value users beats shallow adoption by the masses. Growth at any cost is a trap, especially when the product can't sustain your most profitable accounts. Second, let the product be the marketing moat. PartnerStack didn't win by outspending competitors on advertising. It won by building a marketplace that doubled as a distribution engine for its own customers. When a product inherently connects buyers to a network, it markets itself. Third, take the narrative to the boardroom. Even excellent software churns if users can't explain its return on investment to a finance chief. PartnerStack's growth accelerated the moment it stopped marketing the mechanics of partnerships and started marketing the outcome. Efficient, high-retention revenue. And fourth, treat the ecosystem as an AI strategy. As buyers increasingly trust peers and language models over corporate copy, the leverage of direct sales quietly erodes. The companies positioned to win the next decade are the ones cultivating broad networks of genuine third-party advocates, because AI trust can't be bought. It can only be earned. PartnerStack's journey, from a failing messaging app in a cramped Toronto house to an acquisition by AppDirect, is ultimately a study in strategic patience. The founders had to unlearn their first instinct, chasing vanity growth before they could build something durable. And in doing so, they helped make the case that indirect channels aren't a fringe experiment. They're a structural feature of how enterprise software actually scales. By fusing serious product infrastructure with a marketplace-driven go-to-market model, PartnerStack didn't just build a successful company. It helped rewrite the playbook for how modern B2B businesses grow. This was the marketing behind rapid growth. See you in the next episode.